Well, look, the announcement in the budget is an announcement that says this is what the government is planning to do. The requirement to pay a given rate of pay is a legal requirement which only comes into effect when I sign the order and I gazette it. The figures that were announced in the budget were the figures that were available to the government in the budget based on the index of retail prices in April. And that's why it talks about August, because in fact, if you use the July figure, you can't raise it in August because the July figure is not available in August. The July figure came in my view, given that the union had negotiated 2.5% with the chamber, and given that everybody in the civil service, it seemed to me unfair, frankly, that the lowest paid workers should do less well, and we're not talking about significant differences in sums, and therefore we've raised it by 2.5%, which is more than the inflation figure. Just like in the preceding 2 years, we have, as a Federation of Small Businesses has pointed out, had 2 increases of 30p in 2 consecutive years because we felt we were falling behind other places in Europe with the minimum wage that we had then. We think we've now reached a level where we can keep it there and just uprate it by inflation annually, which is what we are committed to do by the manifesto. And I think it has to also be seen in the context that although some members of the business community may feel that the raising wages is creating difficulties, they seem to forget that, look, the last time social insurance was raised was in 2010. There has been no increase in electricity, no increase in water, and there's been reductions in import duty. It's difficult to understand why an extra 4p an hour is going to break the bank.
Okay, I don't think it's so much about the money. I think they're complaining that administratively, now that they've sorted out whatever it is that they need to do in order to pay the increase that was announced at the budget, then have to change everything because of this further increase.
Well, it's not a further increase. What was announced in the budget was something that they didn't have to do because it was, as I said, something the government is able to make an announcement in the House, which is what it intends to do, and then review that decision before the due date. So, if I had wanted to go up to 611, I would have gone up by gazetting that in July. Normally, employers do what they're required to do to comply with the law. If some employers, simply on the basis that an intention had been announced, decided to anticipate it, it doesn't suggest that they have such difficulty in finding the money if they rush off to do it before the law actually comes in. And I appreciate what the businessmen say about the difficulties that they face in some areas of trade. But of course, everybody that knows simple economics knows that one of the fundamentals in the kind of system that we have in Western Europe is that consumer demand is the key to business sales. And if all the consumers were employed in Gibraltar and resident in Gibraltar, then all the pay increases would finish up being spent in the main in the shops in Gibraltar. There are many areas of the retail trade where Gibraltarians are notable by their absence.
Well, as you were saying, this is just 4p, so it's not a huge increase, but could there be a precedent in this measure in the sense that in future you might go to the budget with, say, income tax increases that are quite modest, only to then increase them by quite a lot subsequently?
Well, look, it is not a precedent. The precedent was created some years ago by Mr. Caruana. I remember in a recent budget where he announced increases in social insurance contributions, and then he forgot to do anything about it and legislated some 15 months later. And I pointed out from the opposition that in fact it was against the law to take more money from people's pay packet than the law provides, and that people were being in fact made to pay something when the legal rate for insurance was different. And his response was, well, the government can announce something and then give it retrospective legal cover, that is, legalizing what had been illegal for 15 months. So it's not a precedent that I will want to follow, but people have to understand that the reality of it is that if an intention is announced, this is not something that is in the Ten Commandments. The government makes an intention by giving people advance notice of what it plans to do. If something was being done that was different, then clearly an announcement would be made. But it is inconceivable that there would be a situation where we would announce a lower rate of tax and implement a higher one, as if people wouldn't find out because they would soon notice the difference in the pay.